Right.
How are you?
I'm good, yeah.
Hello, everyone.
It's not your
There
line.
he is.
Ah.
How's it going? I can't we just sort of chat on the phone? Now everyone's gone. I mean, this I understand, but like people have just gone Zoom crazy.
So, I've been told I have to host this, which is the weirdest thing, and I'm thinking of handing over to the professional host immediately.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
You're allowed an evening off. So look, it's so wonderful to see you. It's so wonderful to see all of you. Anyway, now I'm going to get all emotional.
Oh! That's pathetic.
So we need to talk about One Man Two Guvnors and what it was like doing it. But big general question first. I mean, what was the best thing we all remember about it? Who wants to start with that one? I'm not good at this, James. I'm really not good.
You're very good. I was thinking about this morning. Because in truth, I think about the play more than I ever thought I would, actually. I don't know if that's the same for other people, but it really is it's quite present in my mind all the time. And if I was to pick a sort moment that I remember, it's annoyingly not that specific, but I can remember, because I think most of my life I'm not really ever aware of how much I'm enjoying doing something at the time that I'm doing it. I'm often retrospectively enjoying things, whereas at the time I'm just sort of thinking, oh, that could have been better, or should I do this or whatever. But there was one Saturday night when we were in New York, and I think it was about a month before we were ending the show. And about a month before you end a show, particularly a show like this, which is a long run, is when you really start to think, oh, I've got to treasure all of these moments. You know, suddenly the end is quite close. And there was one, it was the Saturday night, it was packed, and we were doing the dinner scene. And it was one of those nights where genuinely Ollie had just gone off, Tom Eden had just fallen down the stairs. And I remember thinking, if I could stay in this moment for the rest of my life, I would live here forever. Because
Ollie had left.
I was going to say that.
No. That you've really ruined something quite nice.
Tom Eden's moved to LA, and James, when he needs to feel good about himself, just pushes him down the stairs and thinks, "I'm good."
No, but that scene when it flew was so special in the sort of, because I think to the audience it really looked like chaos, but to all of us on stage it was real precision. No, it was the chaos was in the precision of it. You know, people could have really been hurt all over the place, and I just remember thinking, this is as good as it gets ever being on a stage doing this. It will never be better than this. That's what I remember thinking.
I think when there were so many things, there were so many variables. There were obviously the variables with the plants and with the audience members, but the variables that would happen during the show when things genuinely went wrong on stage for us was so glorious. And I think probably James had the most of those. There was one time the handle fell off the door.
Yeah.
One of the stage crew just coming on stage and drilling it back in real time, and just how much the audience loved it. We loved it. I remember one time, and it was only because I feel really impressed with myself for this, when I threw my pants sock out of my pants and it landed on one of the lampposts, and we got a huge round, Ollie, and we thought it was our acting.
Yeah, it never was.
I remember two things. The first preview, which is always terrifying if you're the writer or the director, because you have no idea what it's going to go down like. And I do remember those first 5 minutes when before Francis comes on, when it feels like a kind of end of the pier show that has no place on the stage of the National Theatre. And you could feel the audience thinking, what are they up to? What are they doing here? And I think they were the 5 most terrifying minutes I ever spent at the National Theatre. And then Francis comes on and there's the peanut and they go, all right, it's that show. Yeah, good. We're good here. And then about a week later, first performance, down the end of my row was Michael Frayn, who wrote the other funniest play ever written, Noises Off. And I just saw him out of the corner of my eye, choking with laughter. And I thought, that's as good as it gets. So those are 2 of my memories from out front. Richard, what about you?
I seem to remember there was one night, I think when we were at the Haymarket, and we had an audience member go backstage at the interval complaining that we shouldn't be able to treat a member of the public in such a way. Obviously talking about Christine Patterson being sprayed with foam. And I don't know who it was. It obviously one of the stage management just took him to Christine Patterson's dressing room and said, "This is Christine Patterson." And he just went, "Oh, I'm so stupid." I mean, I wasn't there, but it was related to me. And I just enjoyed all the stage management stuff. There was another night, one of the trunk guys split his pants completely, bending down to pick the trunk up. And he was taken backstage at halftime, and stage management sewed his pants up for him. I mean, it's all kind of madness like that was related to me, because I'm never there, of course, as a writer, hardly ever there. But no, I think also, Nick, the 2 little kind of dress rehearsal performances we gave in the rehearsal room were great fun for me. There were worrying aspects of those, and we changed the play to sort those out. But the response was quite extraordinary. I'd never known. I don't think anyone's ever known that in a rehearsal room.
Yeah.
Well, I remember the first one being terrible. I remember the first time we invited in, I think, Nick, you invited in about 100 people.
School kids.
And it was not fun. And I can remember the dinner scene worked, that always worked, but it was sort of the stuff before that. And I can remember us having quite a long chat afterwards. And I can really remember saying, because I remember it was one of those moments, Richard, which you're kind of the greatest at, which is you'll talk about a problem and then Richard will just sort of disappear to a corner and come back half an hour later and go, well, what about this? And then it's all kind of fixed. And I remember saying, it feels like Francis is, in some scenes, he's stupid, and in some scenes, he's actually quite knowing. And I think he should be streetwise, but I think he should be like the scenes where he feels like he's quite intelligent or bright. You could feel the audience go, well, hang on a minute, if he's that bright, why did he just eat a letter? Do you know what I mean? And so it was, I remember having that, and I remember it took you about 25 minutes to come back, and you literally cut, I think, or changed 11 lines, and it changed everything for me that day, really.
But I think my 2 favourite highlights, the first was that first preview when nobody expected anything. And I remember you and me being on stage, James, staring at each other with the audience here while we were looking at each other, and they were howling with laughter. And we would just stare at each other going, just sort of waiting to say lines and looking at each other completely confused. That was sort of extraordinary. I'd never known anything like that. And then actually the NT Live, which I guess has just been on, when we did our curtain call in front of the house, and it had gone so well, and then we ran up the steps of the foyer of the auditorium, and we ran through the foyer and out onto the South Bank, where there were like 1,500 people watching on a big screen, and we ran into this balmy night air, and the outside like crowd went crazy. And it was just, I just remember thinking, like, I mean, when I was 6 and I wanted to be an actor, I never dreamed that I'd be standing in front of the National Theatre after this experience.
I was in that audience that night, Ollie. I had just had a cataract operation, and I had a plastic bubble over my eye.
I remember that.
And they said to me, you can't go out for 3 days or something like that. I said, I'm sorry, I've got my NT live tonight, I'm going out. So I was in the audience watching. It was a great night, that.
Can you remember what kind of things used to go, well, everything used to go wrong. I mean, it used to kind of go right when it went wrong, didn't it? I mean, things like, you just said the doorknob falling off and you inviting one of the stage carpenters onto the stage to fix it. I'm the worst director for corpsing, because I always kind of sit there wanting to be inside the joke instead of feeling stern. But were you all corpsing all the time?
I can categorically say throughout the entire run of One Man, Two Guvnors, all 425 performances I did, I never corpsed, and I never saw anyone corpsing ever. Nobody ever sprayed James Corden with a fire extinguisher on a Saturday matinee after show 320. Nobody ever laughed. We were all deeply professional. And as James said, it was not chaos. It was a finely oiled, precise machine.
You know, we should tip our collective hats to is Cal McChrystal. Because talking about the precision, because it was a well-oiled machine with episodes where it was permissibly baggy, but the machine bit of it was so much Cal's work. Cal, who was the physical comedy director and is such a genius at all that stuff, and the stuff he worked out with you guys was so amazing. And the way that quite a lot of those routines, you couldn't really say there's a division here between the text that Richard wrote, the jokes that Richard wrote, and the way they're being physicalized. It was all so brilliantly done with everything that Cal did.
But he just has a real knack for understanding what an audience and comedy in its kind of purest form. I remember when we were I think we'd moved to the West End in this point, and it was around December time. So we were probably, I guess, 100 and something shows in. I said to Cal, I used to get a laugh, and I'd say a line and I'd walk out the room, and I would always get a laugh. It would get a big laugh, and then now it doesn't even get a titter. It gets nothing, and I don't know what's happened. It's just sort of disappeared. And he was like, well, I'm watching tonight. I'll have a look. And then he said to me afterwards, he said, don't let go of the door handle. I said, what? He said, when you used to do it before, you keep hold of the door handle. He said, so what you're doing is, if you keep hold of the door handle, you throw the line away and you'd leave. He said, if you take your hand off the door, the audience thinks, oh, there's information I need to hear here. There's stuff that I need to take in, and they sort of won't register the joke. He was like, just don't let go of the door. And I remember thinking, oh, come on, as if it's that. Sure enough, the next day, I keep hold of the door, woof, big laugh. And I sort of sent him a text that night just saying, I don't understand how your brain works. You're a genius.
It's a science, isn't it? That kind of stuff is a science. And I don't know anybody better at it.
It's extraordinary.
Weren't we lucky, though, all of us, in the rest of the company? I mean, there's only 3 of you guys on the call. But when you think of how funny everybody was, and how funny they were in rehearsal and inventive they were in rehearsal, all of them.
Yeah. Every single minor part was really played to the limit, I think.
Yeah.
Think of Daniel Rigby and Tom Eden and Trevor Laird and
Claire
Lambs and Tina.
Yeah.
Derek.
Got to mention Fred. Fred's no longer with us, so we've got to raise a glass to Fred and say thanks.
Yeah.
But Tom Eden, I remember in that first workshop that we did when there was only really a first third of the play, and the 2 waiters in the dinner scene were just waiters, and there was a big discussion about how to punch them up. And who'd have imagined that Tom Eden would walk in and create this sort of iconic character out of nowhere? I mean, it's unprecedented. It's 35-year-old guy, a 30-year-old guy playing an 80-year-old waiter. It's
can we take a moment to point out that Tom Eden is a young, sexy guy, just for anybody who thinks he's not.
I mean, he's a solid 7, I would say.
but it was an amazing company, wasn't it? Amazing.
And
in that first
and the
workshop,
Grant's music and the band. Grant's
sorry,
music.
go on, Jemima.
Because it was, every single ingredient. That's why we were so lucky. Every person that was involved in it, the writing, the directing, the acting, the music, the production values, everyone. It was like every single person just knocked it out of the park.
You're right, actually. And also, talking about Grant and the band, I think when I remember now, it's very rare that you walk into the National Theatre, or the Littleton particularly, and you're greeted by a skiffle band, by a five-piece skiffle band, just going crazy, playing these really catchy numbers, basically doing a rock concert before the show.
Yeah.
It's just a real respect to Grant and the music, because it elevated everything brilliantly.
Yeah.
It really did. And then all the which I'd forgotten about until this moment right now, all of the little interludes.
Yeah.
Between, it's just so much fun.
And actually, one of my highlights of the show, as delightful as it was to work with Jemima and James, obviously night after night, was there was a scene with Danny and I where I had to lie and make up my name. Do you remember Dustin Pubside?
Yes.
It was so funny. And me and Danny used to stand opposite each other on the stage and try not to laugh. And it was every single night. It was like a battle of wills with each other and ourselves to just try not to let our heads explode and snot come out of our noses. And
that was one of those where you'd sort of gather in the wings some nights if you needed cheering up and just watch you two doing that scene, and it would never ever disappoint. Yeah,
it was extraordinary to stand opposite him in those moments, I have to say.
Yeah. So look, I'm gonna kind of bring us towards the end, because we've been talking about amazing in every department, not just script, music, lighting, set, Mark Thompson, and just the way that the National Theatre was able to service every single aspect of this show. And I know that everyone at the National, like all of us everywhere around the world, feels completely unmoored at the moment. They're not there. They're not in the building. They're all at home like we all are. But, when I directed this, I was the director of that theatre, and it's kind of the most important thing that happened in my professional life, in my life, really, the 12 years I spent as director of that incredible institution, which is so important to so many people. It's so wonderful that they have arranged that to start rolling out the NT Live archive with this show. I'm incredibly touched that they decided to start this rollout, this free access to all these amazing plays with this play. We got NT Live going as something that would go out live to cinemas, and it's an amazing achievement of this current crowd that they have been able to pull this together, because it's been very complicated in all sorts of departments. But I'd just like to say, having said, and I'm not expecting anybody else to be quite so emotionally attached to it as I am, as being its ex-director, what part has the National played in your lives and careers, and your theatre-going careers as audiences?
The National Theatre lives very close to the front of my brain, my life choices, because I was sort of very blessed in a way. My mum and dad growing up were big theatre fans, and my mum is a very big fan of the National Theatre. In fact, when I introduced her to Nicholas Hytner for the first time, watching my mum, who is quite a force of nature, turn to jelly and just mumble. And then,
I love your mum. I absolutely love your mum.
Oh, it's so funny. When Nick finally walked away, and Mum turned to me and said, "Was that all right? Was that all right? Was that all right?" I've never seen her do that much. Anyway, she took me to see Peter Hall's production of 1984 at the National. Peter Hall's production of Animal Farm at the National in 1984. I was 6 years old, and it's left an indelible mark on me. And so to be able to go to the National Theatre and be a part of that community, and to be a part of this play, I've done sort of 4 or 5 plays there now, and I'm terribly proud of all of them. But to be able to look back at my 6-year-old self and say that I was a part of One Man, Two Guvnors and part of other shows at the National. 12th Night, which is also going to be an NT Live, is also brilliant. It's a sort of validation of my life choices in my past, and I'm so proud to be part of that community.
Jemima, you go now.
Well, I think I don't think I ever felt like a proper actress until I did my first play at the National. And I remember the first mornings, like the first week, walking over the bridge to that iconic building and walking in and just, never been happier. And having done 3 plays, and Govs was the 3rd one. It's, I can't even think of the words to describe that feeling really, but that was like the happiest time in work for me ever. And I was also really proud of my first show there, Her Naked Skin, because it was the first new play by a woman in the Olivier. And I think in my career, I'd always been told that I couldn't do theatre, and I certainly couldn't do theatre in a big space and all of that kind of thing. And then suddenly you do that and you say, I can do it. And just the feeling of community there when you've got more than, you've got 3+ productions going on at the same time, the canteen, the bar, the whole kind of social aspect, and just that sort of feeling of being with all the people that you love being around and respect. And
Richard?
Yeah, I always wanted to play cricket for England, but I wasn't good enough. So, but being at the National, I've always thought of it as playing for England. So that's all it means to me. I've been picked for England.
James?
Well, my memories of that building are probably the most sort of defining moments of certainly my professional life, really. What was it? Would have been in 2004.
2004, yeah.
2004. I went along to this audition terrified, just absolutely terrified, because I'd never been to drama school and I'd never been to university, and I left school with 2 GCSEs, and the National really was a place where proper actors worked, and that I just never really ever thought of myself as sort of an actor in that sense. And then it took about 35 seconds for me to realise that I couldn't have got that more wrong, that actually it's full of the least pretentious, kindest, most hardworking, humble people you could ever really meet in a professional capacity. And there's an incredible feeling there of that you're in something together, you're all in it, all three shows, the 6 productions, you're in it together, you're walking corridors together, you're drinking together, you're eating together, and it is an unbelievably special place. The friendships that I've made there have lasted my life and will last forever, from doing the History Boys. And then coming back to do One Man, Two Guvnors was, without question, the best time of my career. I don't think I'd have ever started writing if it wasn't for being in the History Boys, because Alan Bennett was like, you should start writing some of these things down. So I don't think I'd have ever started sort of writing. And we started writing Gavin and Stacey whilst I was in the History Boys. Like his encouragement of that was so vital. And then everything that's happened in my life since, just me now sitting here in America talking to you, is only a result of going to New York with that play, and only a result of the belief that you, Nick, and everyone in that building puts in you when they cast you in a show. Regardless of the size of your role, you are part of something really special. So I think to all of the people who, if they're watching this, who work at the National Theatre, if they work at the National Theatre and they're feeling like they're on their own and they're feeling like they're distant from that community, you should know that even when you don't work there anymore and you haven't worked there for many years, you still feel like you're part of it. And I'm so excited for it to open its doors again, as am every theatre in London, to open its doors again and feel this rush of people who I really think are going to be aching for a collective experience. And there's nowhere in the world offers a better, I think, theatrical experience than in London, and the pinnacle of that is the National.
Well, James, that's good. I'm going to get emotional again, but I really am.
Oh, Nick.
What I was going to say was, you know how to sign off better than I do. So I'm beyond saying, if you've watched this far and you are someone who loves the National Theatre and the theatre in general, wherever you are in the world, we'll see you soon. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.